Thank you for coming to another edition of Beginner Breakdown. I am your host, Mike Kummer. Here is a game we did not get to from last week. It is my game against Dr. Schuman. I am playing the black pieces. Dr. Schuman starts out pawn to e4. Black counters with c6. This is called the Caro-Kann defense. White usually would bring out his pawn to d4, but instead he brings out his knight to f3, just getting his minor pieces off the back row and developing. So black proceeds with d5, coming for the pawn. So white chooses a very unorthodox way to defend the pawn with the bishop, okay? So black takes it, bishop takes, and now we just want to get a piece off the back row and attack the bishop. So we play knight to f6 here. And so now he decides to defend the bishop with the pawn. So does anybody see how we can eliminate white from castling ever in this game?
Knight takes bishop.
Yes, very good. Take the bishop, pawn has to take back, and now queen takes, king takes, and now we never have to worry about white castling in the game again. Okay. So now we pin the knight to the king, and he doesn't do anything about it. So he plays bishop, bishop up. So now it's true that this knight is pinned, but if there's no really good way for us to attack it. So if we wait a move, he can play like knight to d2, or even king to e2. So we should take it now to ruin his pawn structure, okay? It's usually not a good idea to ever trade a pinned piece, but if there's no way to ever profit from the exchange, then you want to just take it, and now our profit is, he's got double pawns here, and now this pawn is isolated. Very bad for an endgame to have isolated pawns, as we'll see. All right, so I bring him a knight out. He brings his knight out. So I got to get my bishop out somehow, so get the bishop going along this diagonal here. All right, so he dubiously played the move e5. All right, he's blocking the connection between the bishop and the knight. This is not a good idea to put something in the way that can just get captured for free. So how many players does black have on e5? 2, right. And white only has 1, so it's a free pawn. So not a good idea. So captures, and knight takes, okay? So if you're going to move a piece, don't put it where there's more attackers than there are defenders. All right, so my knight's out. So he gets his rook in the same line as my knight and my pawn, so I got to be aware of that. So I just move it and attack the pawn. All right, so he plays f4. So now I just made a move to attack his pawn, and he didn't do anything about it. So we really want to look and see, is this a good exchange? So it looks like free pawn, right? But what happens if I would play knight takes pawn? What?
You were and win the pawn.
Right. So he would play his rook over to attack my knight. I can't protect it, so I have to move it. So my knight moves, and all of a sudden, he's got his rook down in my territory. He's got his pawn back, and now he's threatening moves like king f1 and coming down and attacking my e-pawn here. So we always have to watch out whenever we take a b-pawn that the rook doesn't just come over and then win our b-pawn. Same thing with the g-pawns. All right, so I decide not to take. I decide to castle queenside. So that did a lot of good things. It protected my pawn. It got my rook in the game, and I'm doing well. All right, so now he plays king up. So a discovered attack on my e-pawn. So we could just trade pawns. Knight takes pawn, rook takes pawn. But we don't want to do that. We don't want to give our opponents any kind of counterplay. So we'll just play e6. All right, so now he still doesn't do anything about the b pawn. So now the time is right for us to just capture it. All right, so just because his last few moves haven't made much sense, you know, like knight to e4 didn't make much sense, we can't be underestimating our opponent. So why did he play the move? We always need to be asking ourselves, why did he play that move? And we can't find a reason like knight e4, then we can go on with our own threats. But now he played knight to g5. So he's not just aimlessly moving his knight around. What is he attacking here? He's threatening the fork. Knight takes f7. So we must do something about that. So there's a lot of different moves we can do. f6 would be the worst, right? Because he's not just threatening to take our pawn, he also wants to go to f7. Okay? So a move like f6 or f5 to defend the pawn wouldn't work. So what are some ideas to protect the pawn then? What do you think the best way to protect the pawn is? Because we do want to protect it. Any ideas? Rook f8? Or which one? Okay, so if we played rook d to f8, it would protect our pawn. But a big thing in rook endgames, as we'll see in this one, is rook activity. Okay, we want major activity for our rook. See, this rook isn't very active, and this rook now isn't very active. Let's say he plays rook to attack our knight, and then we would move our knight. Now he would take the d file, okay? And we don't want him to have the d file. So if we don't want him to seize that d file, what move will we play to protect the pawn?
B7.
Rook to d7. And you see how our rook is much more active on d7 than it is on f8? Good, good. So keep your rooks active in the endgame. And now he attacks my knight. I have to move it. And now he can't get that d file. All right, so now he attacks the knight again. So now I make a mistake. Okay, usually, hey, your knight's attacked, just move it, right? But I decide I'm going to make a threat greater or equal to his. So I decide to attack his knight. Okay? All right, so both knights are now currently attacked. Can white capitalize on this to try to win at least a pawn? Because notice, this is what I calculated. I was thinking, okay, if he takes my knight, and then I take his knight, and then he'll take my pawn, and I'll take his pawn, and we'll be even. But I didn't calculate a line, and neither did he, fortunately for me, that just wins a pawn flat out for white. Does everybody see it now? All right, go ahead, Kevin.
Either knight takes f7 or even knight takes e6, I think, will
Yeah.
be an option.
I believe knight, I'll check the computer. I believe knight takes f7 is better, but
Threatens his rook, which
right.
probably is the thing for tempo.
Yeah, knight takes f7 is the only one that works because
He's probably got a. Oh, he can make a check. He can
because I can get that check.
knight
But
d2 and then
right,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
knight come out.
Because if he plays knight takes f7 here, which is the best move, and then if he goes check and play king to e2, and then when I take the knight, I'm removing the defender of my knight. Okay, that's why rook takes f7 is better than rook takes e6. Because my rook would still be defending the knight. Okay, so did everybody see that? In this position, if he plays knight takes f7, even though I get this intermezzo check, he attacks my knight with the king, and then when I go to take his knight, king takes the knight, and then he's up a pawn. So always be looking out for cool moves. Okay, but instead he just retreated back to e4. And so I'm just like, let's get the knights off the board. Because I'm winning. When you're winning, trade, and it makes it so much easier for you. Look at his pawns now. Isolated, doubled, isolated, isolated, isolated. And I have 2 pawn islands. So this should be a very easy win for black. So let's see if I do okay. All right, so he tries to get pressure. Okay, so the last thing you want for your opponents to get in an endgame is counterplay, okay? So he's threatening rook takes b7. Don't let it happen. It can't be any more simple. b6, protected. Okay, so this is a very unusual tactic you'll see him employ a lot, defending his pawns with his rook in this fashion. Very immobile, not recommended. So what do you think black does in this position instantly? And I'll give you a hint, it's not check. Even though it looks tempting, right? Like a check. It would do nothing. How about rook to d8? Double, now I own the d file. Okay. So now he plays a4. And now rook attacks the rook and also threatens both the pawns. So when he moves the rook, now we have a decision. Which pawn to get? So Mario wants f4.
That's a double weaker pawn.
That is a double weaker pawn, and he's threatening like pawn breaks with a5, right? Because if I would take this, and then he would play a5, you know, obviously I don't want to take, because white would not play check. He would play this move. He would stop one short, and then he's threatening to take this pawn and double his rooks down here and go for a perpetual check, or maybe even checkmate. You know, if he goes here, he's threatening rook a1 checkmate. Okay, so we don't want to give him counterplay. So he could generate counterplay with his a pawn. So let's get it out of there. Okay. So now he protects the pawns in his fishy formation again. All right. So now all we have to do is with our rooks is create targets. I mean, this is a target, this is a target. Whichever one we want. We could play our rook here, or we could play our rook here. All right. And now we're going to get it no matter what. So now he decides, okay, you want that pawn? I'll attack for this pawn. Should we just say, okay, even trade, that's fine? No. We should just say, you're not getting any counterplay. I'm playing h5, and you can't hold on to this pawn no matter what. All right, so rook takes pawn, rook h3, c5. All right, so now he plays c3 here. Okay. So now after rook to h4, he's going to finally get some counterplay here, okay? So which file do you think he wants to go to? If you had to guess, which file do you think this rook wants to go to? Okay, so I'm hearing a lot of F files. Okay, which looks good because, hey, I'm threatening the pawn. But I can do a lot of things. I can just play my other rook over here, right, to stop it. Well, I probably wouldn't play f5. That's what I would do, okay? Play here. But what's the only file that he can go to that my rook cannot go to? And I'll give you a major hint. It's open too. Yeah, you want the rooks on the open file, okay? So now he can think about his own possible checkmates here, okay? So my rook can't block him now. So I take the pawn here, and now everybody should know what his next move is, right? Rook, pile on the D file, right? And now, if you're not precise here, he might end up perpetual checking you, okay? So what is white's big threat in this position? Is it rook to D8 check? Like if I play H5? Is it rook to, is this what he's threatening? Is that his threat? No. In the rook endgame, you want to go to the 7th rank or the 2nd rank, okay? This is what he's threatening, right? And then come down here and, like I said, maybe try to checkmate me like that, or just perpetual check me forever. Like check, check, check. And even though I'm up, 6 pawns to 2 pawns, game's over, perpetual check, okay? So you always want to be aware of these tricks in the end to try to, either checkmate your opponent or force a draw in a losing position. Okay, so I really don't want rook to D7 to happen. Obviously, my rook can't come down and stop it. So essentially, the reason why I don't want rook to D7 to happen is because my king would get trapped on the back row. So what move do you think I should make to make sure my king does not get trapped on the back row? Yeah, king to B7. Excellent. Well, first you can throw in a check. Yeah, obviously, you got to throw in a check. Oh, on the A file. Because rook here would be bad, because after king to G2, I move my rook, and then he gets rook to D7. All right, so throw in the check, hoping that he blocks it. But he doesn't, so the hope chess is not good. All right, so now we got to play king to B7. All right, so king to B7 or king's safe. And if he wants to get the F pawn, well, so be it. All right, so he gets the F pawn. But we still have these guys, all right? So let's get them rolling. So now he uses his big trick, gets right in between the pawns, and this time it works for him. So we want to keep this pawn. So rook to G. And now he takes our pawn, but it's okay because we got this guy flying down there. So I mess up again. What should you play in this position? So I'm scared of rook here, which I probably shouldn't because he doesn't have much time to do it. Followed by C4, and then he gets checkmate. Okay? See how that's checkmate? The king's got no place to go. All right, so I play rook G to G1 to threaten check. All right? So white has one good move to try and save the day for him, at least temporarily. What do you think it is? Because obviously if he comes rook down here, I'm going to check him on E1 and win his rook, or trade rooks, and then have an easy game. So in this position, it's white to move. So we probably want to move our rook off the E file so it doesn't get skewered. And what's a good thing we can attack? The H pawn, excellent, yep. But unfortunately for him, he plays king f3, and it's just so slow. And there's nothing he can do now. I'm going to get the queen, and the game is over. I got to play a beginner here in his first rated game. So let's see how he handles this game, okay? So Devin is playing white. He plays out the move e3, not really trying to attack in my territory at all. So I counter c5, bishop c4. You'll see this a lot in beginner games. They want to target f7 right away. All right. So in order to stop that, you just play e6. That way he can't try to checkmate you at all. All right, so knight f3, d5 attacks the bishop. He doesn't go for the check. Instead, he just retreats his bishop to e2. Knight to c6, and he gets castled. So far, so good. I mean, it's not the best, but he is castled, he's safe, and he's got some pieces off the back row. Knight f6, and now he plays d4. All right, I know that he's probably going to take this since he's a beginner, so the last thing I would want to do is play bishop here or bishop here. You know, even though I want to get my bishop off the back row, it would just be a waste of a move. So I play queen to c7. So now after he takes, bishop takes. And now queen to e1. No rhyme or reason for that move, really. So whenever you're playing, you want to have some ideas. And some very general ideas are, hey, just get my pieces off the back row and start playing. Like knight c3 attacks b5 and so forth. But queen to e1, not good enough. So get castled, get safe. Just because you're playing a guy in his first rated game, you want to play solid. So castle. Bishop up. e5. Bishop to c3. So I have two defenders, the two attackers, so everything's fine. So now I can start attacking my own stuff. So as white, he plays bishop to d1. Not recommended, okay? He keeps retreating with his pieces. Not good. Rook e8. Queen to e2. All right, putting more protection on here. Bishop to b6. So he attacks my bishop here. So I really don't want double pawns, so I just retreat it to e6. So now he plays knight to a3. So remember, you want to eliminate as much counterplay as possible in these games, okay? So obviously, knight a3, the only place he can really go to is b5 that's any good. So you just play the move a6, and that stops all his threats. You know. All right, queen to f3. So away, I thought for a second, not very long, that this idea might win the queen, but it doesn't. Bishop attacks the queen. Queen has to go here, and then if my knight attacks, it doesn't win the queen because queen takes bishop. Okay, so. But it's always good to look and see, hey, you know, if I play bishop, he might lose the queen, but it doesn't work. So I try my own attempt to checkmate black here. Okay? So if you had an idea of how to checkmate black here, now that the knight is on h4 instead of f3, what would it be? It would take some time to develop it. But what are some ideas? So of all of white's pawns, which one is the weakest?
H2, right?
H2 is currently the weakest, okay? So we've already got one guy hitting H2. Let's see if we can get more guys hitting H2.
Knight G4.
So we could try knight to G4 here. And maybe he wouldn't do anything about it. But we could also try this hope chess idea. Queen to T6. So he attacks our queen, so we have to take it. And now he takes it. And now, what move can we play to try to threaten a checkmate here? Try to get our checkmate idea pumping. What idea we got?
Bishop C7.
Bishop to C7. So the queen and bishop in a battery coming down to attack H2. All right, so he plays bishop to D2. And now we obviously play E4. And then he plays G3 and laughs at us. But obviously, it's his first game. He's not going to do that. He plays C3, and game over. Checkmate. All right, so I play one more game against this guy. This time I had the white pieces. All right, so I start out E4. I have been playing D4 this year, but if you know that your opponent is going to play E5, should always play the move E4. So black counters with E5. White plays knight out, obviously attacking the pawn. Black defends it. Bishop to C4. I was hoping that he would play knight F6 so I could go into the fried liver attack. But he did not. He played D6. So D6, so he activated his bishop here, okay? So where do you think this bishop is gonna go? Pinning the knight, okay? And that can be really annoying. So you can just play the move H3, and then you don't ever have to worry about getting pinned. So now he wants to play his bishop, but he's got to go to D7 here. So now castle to safety. And he gets his other bishop to E7. You notice in both of Devin's games here, he hasn't really been attacking too much. He's been putting all his pieces on his first couple ranks, okay? Not a good idea to just hang out in your territory. It's like you're just waiting for them to just come and get you the whole time. You need to play more aggressive, okay? So C3, preparing D4. So now knight attacks my bishop. Bishop retreats. Now he starts getting pieces, going toward me. But notice that these pieces are not defended, all right? If I was really good, I could probably take advantage of this situation, but I'm not. So I play rook E1. Now he plays knight to C4. All right. Before he tries all this wild stuff, he might want to play knight F6 and get castled and then do some wild stuff, but not until he's ultimately safe. All right, so now bishop pins the bishop. So I'm hoping obviously for bishop takes bishop, queen takes, and then win the knight. But it's not meant to be. So C6, D4, knight F6, bishop takes, pawn takes. And now, let's see, Mario, you ready for this? See how we can win a pawn. It's a combination here. So if we were going to win a pawn, which pawn would you be thinking about winning here? Probably one where we can capture it, huh? So how about this pawn, okay? But, so how many attackers do we have on this pawn? So we got 2 attackers. And how many defenders does he have? 2. Okay, so very easy. We got the tactic called remove the defender. So it's going to be really tough to remove this defender, but not so tough to remove this defender, right? So what move do you think we play? B3, yep, it's just tell the defender go away. Excellent, okay? So knight goes, pawn takes, trade off the queens. Because if we don't trade off the queens, after knight takes pawn, this queen can come down and take ours, and then our rook would get distracted and he can grab our pawn. So like if we took now, he'll play queen takes, rook takes, and now all our hard work is for nothing because he got our pawn. So we take his queen with check. He obviously doesn't take with the rook. He plays bishop takes d8, and now we get our pawn. So now we're finally winning the game. So he gets castled. So now we got to get some pieces going. So we attack the pawn. He sees it, so he just protects it. Very good. We get our bishop out. Bishop c7 attacks our knight here. So we protect it with the bishop. Okay, discovered. All right, and so now this is where he goes wrong. Okay, he wants to attack our knight, but he chooses the wrong rook. Like this rook he might want it on the C file eventually, maybe the D file, this open D file. But when he plays this rook over, now he boxes his rook in here. Not good. All right, so we'll just protect our knight. Knight attacks the pawn. Excellent. So where do you think our knight really wants to be? Like his dream scenario. Whether it's a good move or not right now, where do you think he really wants to be? Like if you could put this knight anywhere on the board, and he's like indefensible, where he can't get taken, he's invincible. Where would we want the knight? In a dream scenario, like if you put the knight on there, on this square, you won't be able to capture it. Okay? You got like a free pass. You should be always dreaming when you're playing chess, like, oh, I wish this could happen, I wish this could happen. And then you wish it so much, and if you really, really want it, you'll find a way to make it happen, okay? So it's a good idea in chess, even though it's not in a reality right now, to be thinking big, okay? So where would you really want this knight to be? Whether you can get captured on the square or not. And I'll give you a hint, he can actually hop to the square right now. D7. He would love to be on D7 right now because, I take the rook. But unfortunately, right, if I go to D7 right now, I get captured by the knight, right? So what move do you think we play to make knight D7, a reality? So if we play bishop to d4, okay, he could move this rook now, right? And then knight d7 doesn't look so hot. Any other ideas? But bishop d4, I mean, you're getting there. I mean, you got ideas like, I want to attack you, get you out of there, and see what's up. Excellent. Pawn c5. You make the move. You're like, I'm threatening your knight, move your knight, and he'll move the knight. And now we get knight to d7 here.
That's pretty common again with beginners. If you attack a piece, they move it. They don't think about, can I attack something else?
Right.
And I think what's the best response to, what did the computer think was the best response?
Oh, here is just take the pawn. And then if I take, the whole idea is that this is what I overlooked in the game, is that when I attack his bishop, he can simply come down and take the knight with his bishop, and bishop takes, rook takes.
You end up essentially hanging your knight on e5.
Well, trading the knight, because we get a knight in return. So bishop takes, right after c5, knight takes f4, pawn takes, then bishop takes,
Take bishops.
rook takes. 5, and we each have 6 pawns, but this pawn, even though he's pretty advanced, he's going to be really tough for me to defend, if not impossible. So knight goes to c8, and now, Mario, we get the we get the big knight on d7 here. Bishop takes, knight takes f8, rook takes, and yeah, you just take over these files, and we'll be in business here. So we could try to get a checkmate here, hoping that he takes, or we can just, you know, destroy his pawn structure here, and then get rook to d8. And he's got no counterplay, and it's going to be pretty easy to mop up these pawns and the game. So advance your pawn, bishop takes. So it looks like I just hung a knight for nothing, right? But even Winston can probably find this move, huh? It looks like I just dropped my knight, huh? Oh. Wilson, you got it? Rook to b8. Yep, the knight's in an absolute pin. And now, Wilson, what would you play in this position, just to end all hope for black? Just take the bishop. That way you don't have to worry about checks or anything, and he cannot catch the pawn. All right. So thank you all for coming, and stay tuned for a VARS lecture.